Okay, so we are live now. A little bit of technical difficulties, but we are live. Okay, so we are live now. Before we begin, I want to say a few things. Like, I want to thank you to all who donated for this project, because I always forget to mention this. So I want to take this off my chest, because I wanted to do this the last time, then I forgot. So really thank you for donating to this project, and if you want to donate, you can go to tromsci.com/donate, or you can help us to translate books or videos into other languages. Just contact us, and without your donations or your support, I don't think we can do this. And I think that's really true, and it's not quite an exaggeration, because many people are involved, especially lately. And okay, with that being said, let's start the stream. And today's topic is over-tourism, because it's the season. It's many people are in the winter or in the summer are flocking, going to different kind of places. And I was thinking today, like, if an alien species would see us, they would think that we are like birds. In the winter we go to one place, in the summer we go to another place. And we have a book. We just released a book about this topic. It is written by Dima, and yeah, and I'm going to give him the opportunity to explain everything about it. And we also have Sasha, and apparently I didn't add the name over your live stream. And Sasha, because you may not know Sasha, she traveled around the world for the past 10+ years, but she travels in a way that is a lot different from the way that most people travel. And I think we have a lot to learn from her, and we are going to hear from her, because she also contributed to the book. I did that too. And she also helps with the project for the past 2 years, I guess, or I don't even know how long. And
no, I think just a year.
Just a year? Okay. I don't know.
I didn't even know about it before that, actually.
She helps with proofreading and other stuff. And yeah, I think I'm curious to start with Dima, because it's the book that he wrote, to ask him, like, why do you think it's an important topic, and what is the book all about, basically?
Well, yeah, the book is about mass tourism that creating over-tourism. It's like a slang. It's not official name, I think, over-tourism, but what it's mean that by moving such, mass of peoples in different places, it creates a lot of problems, like pollution, let's say animal abuse for entertainment purposes, like a lot of waste, and coral reef extinction, and a lot of problems. And that seems a bit weird when we have so many places in the world, like so many countries, so many nature, and so many sites to see, and people just for some reasons go to see in one place until it become totally devastated. So one of the top stories, it's about Maya Bay island in Thailand.
Mm-hmm.
And the story is, so like, there was a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio in main role called The Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing, the movie is like Hollywood stuff, nothing fancy, nothing.
Yeah, so they showed that Iceland, like, it's like a place where no one has reached before, and because of the movie, lots of people are going to those places.
Yeah, exactly. So like in the movie, it was shown like, the abandoned beach, no one could get into it, and it's so cool. So basically all the movie, they're just partying there. So after the release of this movie, this place, Maya Bay, becomes so popular. So people go there and go for tours and everything. So at the point after, I don't remember exactly, maybe 10 years or so, the beach becomes so destroyed and devastated by people. So, and super polluted and super overcrowded. So it couldn't be sustainable anymore. So, and what the government of of the Thailand did, they just start to close it for like half year, but they close it only when it's off season, when there's not so many tourists. So it's kind of stays there for half year, kind of have a rest, and then when it's season again, a lot of people going back for half year and again destroy it. But at this year, they were forced to completely close it because it was like,
and I think like why do you think people go to such places? Do you think it's only the movie? Because I think it's also a lot of marketing. Companies see that such a movie is attractive and they come up with offers and they come up with package deals and so forth, right?
Yeah, so like a big role, there are like many factors, but one of the main of them is of course the mass media promotion, one place over another. So let's say even such fact, if you want to visit some country and you want to find some alternative places, it's really hard. Like really, just guys try to do it on your own, and you will see just searches of like 10 best places. You must see like 25 best places, 30 places. There's million pages, but all of them refer to the same places, to the same sites, to the same architectural buildings or whatever. So it's really hard to find alternative. That's one thing.
So the book it's about the impact of mass tourism and what influences this mass tourism. Basically, that's the first part of the book.
Yeah, like in the book, the first part, of course, I'm explaining what the problem is and where it comes from, why it is so, and then toward the end of the book, we are looking for solutions and like current solution which are applied by our system now, and are they effective or not, and then of course like ideal core solution which could change everything. So yeah, and of course with advent of cheap airlines, and like low cost airlines, right?
Yeah.
And cruise ships, like tourism is booming. So let's say like in 1950s there was only about 25 million tourists like yearly, like average, and in last year it was 1.3 billion of tourists already. So if you look at the charts, it's growing so much, so rapidly. But what scares the most is like, it's not a bad thing, of course, to travel, but that everyone goes in the same places at the same time, like so.
Yeah, I was curious, Sasha, because you travel so much, did you see a lot of mass tourism and what is the impact that you see when you travel?
Yeah, I mean everywhere, but I wanted to actually talk about that, what you mentioned, that it's like really hard to find any information of like what's off the beaten path, because even when you look for something like off the beaten path, as soon as somebody publishes it, it's no longer off the beaten path. Now this is the path. And I recently did like a trip to Mongolia, and I was just hitchhiking there the whole time. So we were it was the same thing. I kept on thinking about your book because I proofread it right before I left for Mongolia. And then as I was there, I'm like, yeah, really, like there's only like a few different destinations that you can find any information about. So what we had to do in order to find anything off the beaten path was hitchhike, because when we were hitchhiking, people would bring us to like their village, and give us a real experience of what's, of something that's actually off the beaten path. Like we had one guy picked us up hitchhiking. He didn't speak a word of English or Russian, and he brought us to his village. He like brought us up this mountain, which is like this amazing, beautiful place with an amazing view of the landscape, and we slept in his like mother's yurt, and they gave us all this traditional food, and we even went horseback riding and rode his motorbikes, and it was completely off the beaten path, and it wasn't something organized by any kind of tourism. But we would never have found that if we weren't hitchhiking,
Yeah.
So in order to find, I don't know, even like beautiful landscapes, it's really, really hard, and another funny thing is, recently with I guess with a little shift in culture, and the availability of cheap travel, backpacking has become really popular too. And before, I thought backpackers were kind of, original and, not all doing the same thing. They were traveling for long periods of time. Some people go for a year or 2 years. But I realized, like, recently, after thinking about your book and meeting a bunch of backpackers in Mongolia, that, like, they're actually going on the same path too. They all have the same route, basically. And so many of them are like, oh yeah, like, I mean, I came to Mongolia and I saw, like, the three things you're supposed to see, like the freaking Gobi Desert and this park and, like, some yurt somewhere, and I'm done. Like, I saw everything in Mongolia. Like, you can never see everything, So mass tourism also, I don't know, it makes you miss, like, the important cultural value you can get from visiting a particular place.
Yeah, and for those who are watching, this is Sasha's website, Big World Small Sasha, and she posts here a lot of great photos and stories. So yeah, I think what you said is very interesting, that even backpacking is now, like, people travel in the same kind of destinations, and I think it's a lot of the influence is that of social media. A lot, it could be from Instagram to Facebook, because people post. I saw, like, a video on Trump curated videos about the place in close to the Grand Canyon. It was like no one knew about that place, but a popular guy on Instagram went there, took a few photos, put a tag, a geolocation, and then lots of his followers, they went to the place, and because they made so many photos and so forth, they made that place very popular, and now they had to make a parking lot. They had to, like, it was a very beautiful and wild place, but now it's full of tourism, and I think it's because I think it's an influence of is the traditional way, the people who are advertising through tourism companies, and is the other non-traditional way today, where YouTube or Instagram or Facebook celebrities, they post about certain places and all people flock there. They go there to just and to take a, I don't know what they want to do, to be honest, because that's one part that I don't quite understand. Like, why is this desire to travel? Like, because what pushes you, Sasha, I think is completely different from what pushes most people, because you go to places that are unknown. You just go there and you basically live there. That's your lifestyle. But most people, I think, is just because they want to in our world of materialism, to just go to certain place and take a photo and say, I went to Paris, I went to Barcelona, I went somewhere, even if they don't feel good or they don't enjoy it, they want to post it. I saw this a lot of time on social networks. So I think it's just this mentality of being better than other people. Like, look at me, look what I'm doing.
Yeah, and this checklist, I hate this. Like, people ask sometimes, "Oh, what's on your checklist?" I'm like, I don't have a checklist, like, because I wouldn't know what could possibly get on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think also, especially with mass tourism, one important factor is also that people are just going, like Dima talked a lot about these package deals and all-inclusive packages and stuff like that. So a lot of times people go somewhere just to relax, just to get away from their normal lifestyle, and I mean, I think that says a lot about our societies. People go over there, and like what Theo talked about in the book, he gave an example of how when people go to relax, in a particular resort or whatever, they kind of feel like they deserve it, right? So they can treat people like shit. They can make a huge mess, make a lot of noise, whatever. Usually people aren't that respectful, especially in, say, like an all-inclusive resort. So that comes from the problem of most of these people, I would say most people, live in a way that's not very healthy. They're not living a very fulfilling lifestyle because they're working a shitty job that they don't want to do. So they feel like they've earned these like 2 or 3 weeks, and they need to go and relax, and they've earned it, so they can, it doesn't matter what they do, they can pollute, create a lot of waste, and basically cause problems when you look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's like a revenge,
Yes, because I live in a tourism-based city here, and basically it's like 8 or 9 months of the year is almost empty, and the rest of the year there are like more than 50,000 tourists here, but the population here is 3,000 people. And my family works in the tourism industry. Basically they clean up houses and after tourists and for all kinds of companies, and I can tell you from their experience and from what they say that it's tourists, most of them, they just don't care, because in our society you are used to, like, you work, you get your money, and then you do whatever you want to the money, because you feel like it's like you deserve to have someone to clean after you. Or I think it promotes a really bad behavior, to not be responsible, not only for the place that you rent, but the nature place that you go to, because why would you care if you go there for your holiday and then you go back home? You won't care to trash it. If we were to live in a different kind of sane society, to not have this stratification of our social classes, and to feel like everything belongs to us, you wouldn't go in such a place and trash it, because it's like you go to your home or to your town and trash it. And I think it promotes a very bad kind of behavior. And just to show you, I mean, I won't even show you that many photos, but because they are quite gross. But for example, if you look at the stream, in the left photo, you see so many inflatables. I mean, just imagine that this is from one day of cleaning up houses. These are inflatables, are made out of plastic. Imagine if this is one day or a few days. And in the right side you see so many football balls and all kinds of stuff that, people come here, they buy inflatables or whatever, they don't take them with them, they just leave it behind. And my family, they take them home, because what should we do with them? Or they throw them away. And imagine if thousands and thousands or millions of people are doing this. Imagine the amount of waste that is generated. And this is because I think, imagine if you had a rental kind of system, and it would be perfect if it would be free, where people can go, and if they want an inflatable or a football or a ball or whatever, they can take it and they can bring it back. I think that would be a much better alternative overall in our society. But today it's a family, they come with a car, they come with their luggage, they buy inflatables, they buy whatever things for the beach, or they have to buy food and they leave food behind. So it's a complete mess. It's a very wasteful way to organize such trips.
Yeah, and now you can also buy this stuff really cheap. Like I lived on Hawaii, and people can buy like an entire inflatable toy for like $1, which in Hawaii is like you can't even buy a soda for $1, So people don't care. People are like, oh, it's only $1, it doesn't matter, I'll buy it, I'll throw it away, and it's gonna pop in one day too. But it just creates so much waste.
But then that's it's overall mentality, which comes from our jobs. If you're working full time, like the same what you, Sasha, told you, and then you just go somewhere and you want to relax and you feel that I'm earned this, I can do whatever I want. And big part of that also, the kind of vacation what we have, like usually people work about 11 months and then they have like 1 month free in overall per year, and usually all of them tend to have these vacations at the same time, like the Christmas or somewhere in August or in the summer or sometimes even your employer won't let you to take your vacation at some certain point. And yeah, you feel kind of you're missing your life probably, and then when you're working so much and also work, yeah, you just don't care.
I know some people who are basically they live for that. That's everything, all that they wait for the entire year, to get that holiday, to go to some place because they saw an ad on Facebook or whatever, and they go to that place and they put it on maybe on their Facebook or Instagram. I've been there, I've done that, and I think it's such a not only it's wasteful for resources, I think it's wasteful for the mind, because people are tricked, they are oversold on such trips, because nothing looks like in the photos. I can tell you from my experience, because my family works for rental companies, the apartments that you see and the places that you see are not quite like what you see in photos. The reality is very different. You may see a beautiful home, but you don't know that it's like full of ants and it's extremely cold, and it's if you look closely, everything is so old, but you don't see that. And sometimes they even had problems with tourists because they complained. They said, we saw something online, but offline it's a completely different story, because of course everyone has to be a bit of a charlatan in our world to make some money. So from tourism companies to social media pages that are reaching so many people with advertising. I think, to me, from my perspective, I've seen the past years that this thing with tourism became like a craze. Like everyone has to go, even the most poor of human beings at least has to go someplace to showcase that he can do it or she can do it. It's very twisted mentality from my perspective.
Yeah, it's true.
And my dad has actually he sells these like package tours to people in Moscow, and he deals with a lot of different people, but mostly they're like middle class or somewhat poor people, and he says that that everybody just feels like, especially people that have just been working their ass off all year, they're just the biggest pain in the ass, because they really feel like they deserve, the best, to be a king. And then at the same time, this becomes a problem because, I don't know, for me, the reason to travel is to understand another culture, right? To see some beautiful places as well, some landscapes, but try to get a different perspective of the world. But if you're going to a different place with this mentality that you are king for a week and you deserve everything, then you also have this huge distance between yourself and the local people. And for sure, you're not going to be able to actually connect with them on a one-on-one level. It's hard to understand another culture, especially if you don't speak the language. But when you have this huge distance between you're a tourist and this is like, kind of like my servant, which is what a lot of people act like when they go to Thailand or Indonesia or something. And then the locals basically are changed when tourism comes to their area, because they know that you are, especially, you are white in a lot of poor countries, and that means you have money, even if you don't have money. And so you have this crazy mentality shift where you're no longer just two people that are trying to learn something from each other, trying to understand each other, but now you're someone who's king for a week, and you're someone who's trying to get money from this king. So it's a trade going on, Yeah. Even if the trade doesn't happen, even if it's just people trying to sell you stuff and you're trying to ignore them selling you stuff, you can't have this one-on-one level. And so that's why I really like hitchhiking and couch surfing. Even if I had a lot of money, I would still do that, because that allows you to understand each other on the same level. Because when you're invited into someone's home and there is no trade involved, then you can learn a lot from people. But you can't do that if you're
exactly. For example, here I remember a few times my father had to go to, because he does everything for this company, had to go to open a bottle of champagne for for the tourists, because it's like 10 p.m. like in the night, because they just didn't want to open it. Some they need to, my father has to open their door, or all kinds of shit like that, that they don't even change their bed sheet, or something like that. They are very patronizing, many of them, and because of this society. It's not like I'm accusing them, but I think everyone will feel like that if you work so hard, and you probably have a job that you hate, because I think it's kind of hard to have a job that you love, because you have to do this all the time, so you start to hate it. And then when they came to such places, I think they feel like it's their turn to be served, and someone to listen to them, because they paid the money. I think in the future this is going to be like it was back in the day, a little bit with slaves, because there are people who work almost like slaves, and I know very much about this, because many people from Romania come in such places because they are poor and they are overworked, and you cannot say anything, because if you work, if it's such a job that they can kick you out anytime, because they can replace you with someone else, so you have nothing else to say. It's a lot of shit going on. I'm sure many people have no idea when tourists come and they see those people who work to clean their houses or repair their stuff. They don't have any clue that these people are really stressed out, and it's very difficult for them to do what they do, and they are very poorly paid. So it's
and then what experience, like there are like two problems from here. Like the first one is what experience those people have, like the tourists, when they come and they expect to see something, authentic and something interesting about countries, but they always get to the super touristy place with all the same, Chinese souvenirs, all this like similar places, and at the end there was no point of going into another country, because you don't see those local people. But you don't see local people because they're forced to go to live somewhere else. Let's say if we take Venice for example, or there are many places like that, some small cities which became popular in mass media, and people just go there and travel, and it creates like Theo, this story very well. You can continue later. But the idea is the prices for the rental go up all the time, and local people are forced to move out somewhere, either in another city or somewhere in suburbs. So because they cannot afford, and then the rental companies, they earn more money of renting the rooms or the flats on daily basis or weekly basis than to rent it for a year. They could make more money just to rent one place for 3 months, and it could stand their 9 months empty, and it still will be more profitable for them than to rent it for locals. So
I have a funny story here, because when I first made TVP magazine, for those who know, we made a donation campaign for me to work 1 year, and I had money to work for 1 year, and I said, okay, I'm going to rent an apartment to be able to work, to have my own stuff. And I had the money to pay for 1 full year the rent in advance for any company that will offer me like a cheap apartment. And I went to every single rental company in the town, and I could not find any apartment, because they said it's not profitable for us. You can pay in advance, we don't care, because we rent for 2 or 3 weeks, not even months, weeks, and we make the same amount of money. Why would I rent to you for 1 year? So because of this, our town is so empty. Even if you want to live here, it's nearly impossible to live, and it's a crazy situation. Then I was able to rent through someone that we knew, and I was staying in a big building, and for the entire year I had no neighbors, except the 2-3 weeks in the summer. I was the only one in that apartment, in that building, which was a bit creepy, but it was like, wow, so many apartments are free and are not no one lives there, and we live in a situation in which we have 100 million homeless people around the world, which is crazy. And in I think in Europe there are like 2 or 3 times more empty homes and apartments than there are homeless people. So I think this is such a big problem. It's even difficult to put it into words in a way for people to get the immensity of it.
Then so some guys telling, yeah, but tourism bring jobs in your area. They're like, local people should be happy. Yeah, it brings jobs, but all the jobs it's low paid and low skilled jobs, all based around tourism, either working in a restaurant or selling
and temporary.
some kind of tours. Yeah, and it's also, yeah, of course, and it's only seasonal. Yeah, so, and if you've got like higher education and you want to find something, some good job, no, you just there are just no such options. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say, looking at the bigger picture, I mean, with the amount of waste and pollution it creates, like, is it really worth it for the jobs? And it's such a temporary thing, to have this huge surge of mass tourism.
I think it's more like an excuse. The jobs thing is like they use it as an excuse to say that, look, we bring jobs, but in fact there are a few companies who make a lot of profit, and I think that's what it is. Yeah. So now, because the holidays are coming, so many people are going to travel. I don't think I ever went into any like to travel for holidays, maybe because I didn't afford to. But to me, it's so strange because you will see people who stay in one city where you are from, and they have to go somewhere else. But other people who stay in that city where they go, they come to your city. So it's like, what is this trade? You go there, I go over. So it's just to go places. And I know, for example, in Romania, it's where I'm from originally. When holidays are all about let's prepare, and this is what I didn't like at all. Since I was like 14, when it was New Year or whatever holidays, people prepare. Let's buy stuff, let's food, let's see where we go, let's do this, do that. But it's like nothing happens. Everything is a preparation. But nothing happens. You don't get anything or much from all of this preparation. Why not just feel good, when you feel good? But as we said before, is because I think they are stressed out at work. They have a window when they are free and they want to like go and, I don't know, get drunk and trash some places maybe. And I'm not saying everyone is like that, but from my experience, living in a city where it's full of tourism, people just don't care. I swear, we have like a freaking small bridge somewhere over here, and it's like a very inoffensive bridge, and they all the time tourists come here, they trash it, they break it down. Like, I was thinking, like, what's in your mind? What do you do this? What's the point? What do you do such things? Sometimes they turn the trash bins upside down because they come from drunk from one club to another, and I think it's fun for them to do that. Because you see, in our society, at 6 a.m. in the morning, the trash guy, the one who the bin man, will come and clean the place, because some zombies who can do whatever they want to do because it's no responsibility. And I think that's it's promoting some values that for small examples, such values may not be much, but when such values are in large pockets of people, then they create a lot of misery.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's important to point out, that I think most people aren't doing the right, I mean, I don't know how to say, like, the right thing in life, because if you spend most of your time doing what you're really passionate about, you don't need to go on vacation, especially to some mass tourism place.
Exactly. For example, I don't feel like I'm so busy with my stuff that I don't feel like go to travel, especially because when you are the tourist, you don't see the behind the scenes. But when you see the behind the scenes, when you go to some places and you say, oh, the traditional food, the traditional people, all of those people there want to make money off of you. So don't be so naive, you know. I'm from a small town in Romania where they make this pottery, like whatever things, but what people don't know is that right now, because of some much tourism, they cannot make them in the city, so they buy them from China and they sell them in Romania. They see, and naive tourists come in Romania and they say, wow, this culture, they make this by hand, and like, sure. You know.
Yeah, and you know, as long as there is, you know, an opportunity to make a profit, people will do, you know, no matter what. So we can see such things start to popping up, like a slum tourism, for example. Yeah, when people go into slums, into some third world countries like Indonesia or India, and just go to slums, and there's actually companies who do the tours. So we go to them, you know, and say, yeah, I want to visit slums, and they go with you and show you things, and you can have a selfie with, you know, poor kids, and it's like terrible. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware like too much about that before you said.
Yeah, and it's getting more popular, really. Like when I researched it maybe half year ago, when I just watched saw some footage and looking for information this week, and I see more and more articles about that, more and more people doing that, and they kind of think, yeah, it's kind of good, you know, for you to understand something. But imagine how this person feels. They feel like they're in a zoo, you know, like the white people from, you know, Europe and America comes and just look at them and wow. Or
yeah, I've heard of these slum tours, I think in Jakarta, somewhere in Indonesia, where, you know, I think it's sick actually, but, you know, a bus of like tourists will come in, and then what happens is like these people living in slums just come running after them, screaming "Bule," which means tourists, and trying to get money from them as fast as possible. Like, man, if you really, like, if you're going there to help somebody, then go there on your own and donate some money to these people, or give them something, help them, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to have, you know, a tour.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like looking at
like you said. And then there is such thing as a war tourism, when people pay just to go to into some conflict zones and kind of experience the fight and see how people dying. And crazy thing I found in Bali. So they've got like unusual like death ceremony, when the person funeral ceremony, when the person dies. So there's like companies, as soon as they know that some funeral is gonna be there, they just making a tour and let the tourists just to watch, you know, this funeral ceremony.
Yeah, I don't think many people are aware that tourism is not only about people going to holidays to like exotic places, but it's also, like you said, slum tourism, work tourism, or they go for drug tourism related.
Tourism, like Holland, how many people, you know, fly there just, you know, to get high,
for surgeries, or treatments.
Yeah, I cover all these topics in a book, just to show exactly, as you mentioned, that there are like different kinds of tourism and why people visit like any particular country. Either it's for selfie or for some advantages, or maybe you can go to other country. It doesn't really care about the culture. You just go there to get cheap booze. Like that was in Latvia, really. Like when there are like guys from England, like. Just flew there to the Riga, to our capital, on a weekend just to get cheap alcohol, because in the bar it was really cheap compared to their price, and flights were cost also like 20-30 euros, so it's nothing. So they just come there to get drunk and for a day and go back.
So it's also the fact that they travel with airplanes, they travel with the car, so it's not only where they arrive, but where they used to travel, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And that pollutes the environment, because, you know, big ships with cruise ships with full of tourists, or airplanes. I think we have like a statistic about airplanes that was like crazy. How many tourists are in the air every?
Oh yeah, I remember it exactly. It was 1.9 millions, and I remember this number because
Yeah.
that's like the population of Latvia. So every second there's like almost 2 millions people in the air, like tourists. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, so I was thinking, when you, Sasha, you visit the places that you visit, do you decide where to go, where to travel?
I mean, it depends on where I am. Like, I just used the last example of Mongolia. In Mongolia, there's like 5 paved roads, so you can only go like 4 actually. Like, there's like 4 different directions you can go. And like I said, if you try to look up information, it's really hard to find anything that's not just like a few different, like a few destinations. So like that's a picture of the Gobi Desert. I wasn't even planning on going there because it was like such a huge tourist destination. But basically, first we decided, okay, there's a big lake in the north. Let's go check it out. So we hitchhiked there, and the important part of the trip wasn't getting to the lake. It wasn't the lake itself even. It was the journey that got us there. It was the actual experience we got from hitchhiking, basically, from people picking us up, bringing us to their village, bringing us to their homes. We had 2 different families like just bring us to their home, where we slept for the night, and they fed us and showed us all sorts of stuff and kept on giving us this disgusting salty milk tea. And it wasn't about the destination, it was about the journey. So for me, it doesn't really matter where I go. Like sometimes I'll travel somewhere and I don't even have a destination in mind. I just feel like, okay, I'm gonna go east, and then on the way I'm gonna figure out what's there, because I don't want to look in like even like it's funny because Lonely Planet. You guys know Lonely Planet?
No.
It's like originally it was made as a guide for like off the beaten track, really cheap ways to travel, because originally a couple made it that was traveling around Southeast Asia, I think, and they just wrote some notes about like which buses they took and things like that. But this book got really, really popular, and now any backpacker has a freaking Lonely Planet.
Not so lonely anymore.
And yeah, it's not lonely at all. And it does, like, it has some good like information. Like it'll tell you where a bus stop is, like where local bus stops are and train stops, and so you can find information about how to get around cheaply. But it also has like these particular places you go to, and it only lists like a handful of places anyway. And then what happens is, because it got so popular and backpacking has gotten so much more popular, like I mentioned before, then what ends up happening is all these backpackers have like the same route on the Lonely Planet. So for me, I don't like to follow that either, so I don't know, I'll just go somewhere and I'll just try to couch surf, and that's a website you can use where it's basically a network of travelers that support each other. So you can tell who's a real couch surfer and who's trying to like get something from you if you read their profile. If you have enough experience with that. So, when you use couch surfing, you can stay with a local person for free, and they will show you, they can show you all sorts of interesting things that you wouldn't find normally, because they're going to show you what the locals know. Yeah.
And your
So,
your experience is more like the traveling and the destination are part of the same thing, which is very different from what the like majority of people when they travel, because when you travel, you know that the traveling itself can be a nightmare, because you have to go from airplane to maybe taxi to being crowded. So it's a completely different kind of traveling for you, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not about the destination at all. Yeah, I mean, it can't be if this is my life. Like, my life is about the journey. It's not about the destination, and I think everyone's life should be.
And imagine if we had like a and Dima can talk more about this, but the infrastructure to do what you do travel the way you travel, but to have the infrastructure to go from one place to another and to stay in different kind of places without giving anything back, like money or to cost you anything. I think it's important to have an infrastructure.
Yeah, and to have clean energy, especially, I mean, clean, ways of transport.
Yeah, like one of the main problems is the pollution, especially from airplanes, so frequent flights, and cruise ships. And yeah, of course, if you would eliminate that, if we would, use the renewable sources of energy, and traveling will be pollute free, then we would have at least that problem. We would sort that problem away. And yeah. So that's kind of like one of the solutions, is to basically, eliminate pollution, how we travel, and there are so many ways. We've got like great TROM book on the road system, and
transportation.
all this, transportation, yeah, where there's like examples of hyperloops, of self-driving cars, maglev trains, and everything, which is already basically almost of all of those technologies already present today, which can travel on their own, not pollute the environment, and be very fast and reliable, but we are not using them.
Yeah, and I think another
interesting thing, it's what our current system like propose as the solution. So basically it's like two ways. One I would call like restrictions. They start to put like time tickets and like paid entry. So this means that you can go in some place only for stay in one place, let's say for an hour, because there's not so many people. And they try to reduce maybe cruise ships arrivals one a day or so. Like for example, in the same venues, the people are protesting there. They're blocking the huge cruise ships with their small boats. Doesn't let them to go in. Of course, they go to jail for that. Like not for jail, but they've got like fines and everything. And yeah, so like restrictions, or the government put taxes for tourists. You go into this country, you have to pay some taxes now, more taxes. Or restrict some businesses, or restricts like services like Airbnb and so on. And the other like current solution is called like sustainable tourism or responsible tourism. Well, when they encourage either businesses or both persons to take more ecological actions, to support, if it's business, to support local people, give them job, try to buy locally, try to save like energy, and try to recycle your waste and so on. Yeah, trash. And on the other hand, as a tourist, you have to to do also like buy locally, to wash, like to use shower less. All of this actually it's
because we have a big problem. We have a big problem with say tourism, and in our world, it's the same approach. They say we have this problem, we recognize this problem because they see all kinds of places being trashed, but their solution is to put restrictions over them, to say exactly. You shouldn't do this, let's put another law, or let's ask people to be nicer. But they don't go to the root of the problem. The same society, the same system creates these problems because it encourages people to go to the same destinations, and tourism agencies to capitalize on that, and then they want to stop this through laws and all kinds of rules, and it's always a failure. You cannot do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So it does like this kind of approaches doesn't change anything at all. I mean, of course, yeah, it's better. Yeah, it's better than mass tourism, but still, it doesn't change a thing. I mean, even when they propose some alternative destinations, even that not gonna work, because after sometimes this alternative destination, will become mainstream and people will go there. And also small companies, they kind of work around all the same places. If you go into any city and you visit something, if you want to use some like tourist package or like tour company, all of them will you know, give you just the options to go for the same places because they already, you know, established the route, the timing, you know, the transportation and everything. And even if you go on your own, unless you do like backpacking and more like a Sasha do, yeah, like you're not as a tourist but maybe as a traveler, and that's a different story. But even if you go on your own, you also will be restricted for the same places because it's just what offers are there. I mean, you really
Yeah.
you really have to do everything like as a as a traveler. When you don't have this time restriction, you can stay in the country as long as you want. You can meet local people, you can stay at their houses, you know. And actually it's the best experience also for me. Like, you know, I'm a musician and I always enjoyed when I traveled to play some shows to stay at some people's houses, not at the hotel, because, you know, you meet these people, you see how they live. Next day they either cook something for you or you go and show you the, you know, the place, their city, and that's the best experience. And what's even more cooler that you cannot buy such experience. They never ask you for money. They're happy that you're stayed. You're happy, you know, to communicate with them. And that's, yeah, you cannot buy this for money. So Sasha can tell more about that.
Yeah, you can never buy that. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
mentioned that in one of my blogs recently. I wrote about how the one of the people that picked us up hitchhiking brought us to his village and gave us this, you know, ultimate tour, which was a tour that I know I've talked to a bunch of backpackers in hostels and other, you know, travelers who have paid for such a tour to, you know, go to a yurt and go horseback riding and,
Yeah.
you know, ride a motorcycle and see some pretty sight. And these guys, actually, that
Yeah.
family, my screen's a little slow, by the way. It's, yeah, sure, you can still kind of get this experience, but it's not going to be the same because you're missing out on the most important part of the experience, which is interacting with these people on a human to human level, you know, on the same level, and trying to understand them, and then feeling this like genuine hospitality. Like these people didn't want anything from us, you know, they were just interested in meeting us, and they were just interested in showing us stuff, and it was so genuine. But when you pay for such a thing, it's not the same, you know, it's a trade.
Yeah, exactly.
And the relationship is not the same. It'll never be the same. So, but the problem is that in this society, like, most people are afraid to go, like, you know, do what I do, hitchhiking and go sleeping in a tent when it's minus 15 outside, you know. So they're only left with, you know, these limited options.
Yeah, and again,
and it's a shame.
the choice where you go, if you're limited by the time, it's like the amount of money you can spend on travel. That's why the mass tourism, you know, became so popular, because it's really affordable and people have limited amount of money they can spend on travel, and they just go whatever, you know, tourists or like tour packages have in their area.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, limited amount of money and limited amount of time, because
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you know, how I'm traveling, like I spend $300 in the whole month, you know, and usually I wouldn't live somewhere else. This was a rare case where I actually had to pay rent in an apartment in Siberia, and I went to Mongolia, you know, and I only went there because it was super close, you know, so I didn't have to fly over there. I would never fly from like the other side of the earth to go to Mongolia, you know. But since it's right around the corner, I hitchhiked there, you know. And shit, what was I saying?
Well, you really have like this interesting kind of approach to traveling that, as I told you before, I wouldn't even call it traveling. In my view, is more like you're exploring places, because those who travel, maybe, well, you can call it whatever you want, but those who travel, they go some places and they have to go back. But it's a completely different approach when you go somewhere but you don't know where are you going from there. Maybe you go further away, so it's not like a loop. You go, you come back.
Yeah.
You just go and you go to some other places. And to me, if we were to have a society that the infrastructure could be automated, for example, and autonomous and self-sustainable, like the transportation on the rental of places and even the food, the access to food. All of this could be, from a technological perspective, from what I know, this is not something that we cannot do from a technological perspective. We have so much stuff already. In my town, where I live, there are hundreds and hundreds of boats, but no one uses those boats because they are owned by someone else. And there are so many cars that are parked most of the time. So we have the means of transportation, and we can do better. We can do like mass transportation if you want to have mass transportation systems, and a simple solution for renting a place, and just, you know, you rent a place, you go to somewhere else. I would imagine such a system where you don't need a middleman and you don't need to give anything back, like a payment. From an infrastructure perspective, I think this could work. But if you apply such infrastructure in our society, it is always going to be mass tourism and problems, because if people travel with electric vehicles to all kinds of places, they still travel to those kinds of places and in the same period of time, and they are still going to make a mess out of that, because transportation also needs roads and needs to change the infrastructure of a city. You know, the city where I live, it's a very small city, but they are starting to make the port bigger and bigger, the roads bigger, the more apartment buildings, so they are destroying parts of nature to put those in place that most of the time stay empty. So in my view, solution, it's infrastructure, of course, but if you apply it in this society where we have to trade and people are going to take advantage of this, is going into the same direction.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And there was like 3 points, like in a book I put as solution. Yeah, one of those is, of course, like the way we travel. Yeah, our infrastructure, what you just elaborate on. And then the second point was when we travel, because yeah, right now, as we spoke before, it was like most of the people have just 1 month of free time, and they try to get, you know, everything, the best out of it. So yeah, like imagine if like post-trade world, if that would be possible, we could work less, or even don't, like, okay, we're not gonna speak if we're not gonna work, but we definitely can work much less. Imagine even if you work like only half year. So if it would be a standard to work for people, half year they work and then half year they've got free to do whatever they want. I mean, their choices would be much more broader. You know, where to go, how long to stay, what to explore, and at what time to go. And the third kind of solution was where exactly do we travel and how do we choose. So if let's say we can have this like a global like program, or let's say application, which suggests us the place. We basically type the place we want to visit, and it gives us, you know, all the list of these places, where we can go, how many people would be on that or that date. You know, it could suggest us alternatives. You know, if this particular place is busy at the time, you know, there's already some kind of amount of people, like, which is like threshold or so. So yeah, and we can just arrange the best time, because again, as we have 6 months of free, you know, of available time, we can, you know, easily move our vacation time, or, you know, this travel and go there.
I think Sasha does like that, right? You, Sasha, you do like that?
Yeah, I mean, this is how I managed to travel so much. It's not, you know, people are always like, oh, how do you have so much money? I have like hardly any money at all, but I don't have a job. And so because I don't have a job, I have a lot of free time. And that's, when you have a lot of free time, then that's when you can spend all the time you need, you know, to do whatever you want. You know, it doesn't have to be traveling either, you know.
Do you think if people would have more time, like they will travel more or less, if they will have more time, free time?
It depends on the culture, that whatever's pushing, you know, their culture to do.
Because it could be the other way around. You know, when people are more rich, they have less children, for example, and I think it could be the same here. If people will have more time, they will be more happy with where they live and busy with whatever makes them happy, and they wouldn't they wouldn't travel as much. I would think it's a wild guess, but I was thinking maybe that would be the case.
Yeah, they wouldn't need to go on vacation, like we said, like, because if you live a really fulfilling life and you're really excited about what you're doing, you don't even want to stop doing what you're doing. Like if somebody was to offer me a free trip to some island or anywhere right now, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but
yeah, I don't really travel, mainly because I don't feel like I hear this all the time from people who I know that are traveling, and okay, but I'm not that, like, I know people who say they want to go to Barcelona because Barcelona sounds like that, you know, so cool, but I live 2 hours away from Barcelona. I've been to Barcelona many times. To me it doesn't seem like anything, and I'm sure that the locals there doesn't seem like anything. It's just a town. If I put you in Barcelona or in Paris, in the middle of the city, you won't even realize where you are, probably, because it's just a big city, lots of traffic jam, and people go and visit a big metal thing that they call the Eiffel Tower, and an alien species will wonder, like, what are you doing there? Why do you want to visit this? I mean, what's so important, especially because there are so many replicas of the Eiffel Tower. Like, I mean, maybe it's more interesting, like, or it will be more like, I would understand if people go to see a blue whale or a big mountain or something like that that is truly unique and rare. But they go to such places because they see advertising and they want to take a photo in front of the Eiffel Tower or whatever. So for me, I have absolutely no motivation or drive to go to such places. I just simply don't care.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or if you want to add something, Sasha.
No, I was just gonna say I try to ignore any popular destination whenever I go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, the same.
It's hard to ignore sometimes, but you know.
Yep.
So I think we cover pretty much like everything.
Yeah, if people want to read the book,
they
should go to tromsite.com/books, and you'll find the book there. You will find more information in the book than we talked about.
Yeah, maybe we could answer some questions in the chat, like in the comment section.
Yeah, and let's. I think you have a documentary you wanted to recommend for people.
Oh yeah, right.
1 second.
So you can, yeah.
Yeah, so people can go to videonew.com and.
Do you have this link?
Yep, I have it.
Yeah, so there's a cool documentary, and it's called "Is Tourism Harming Venice?" and it's on VideoNet, and we should put somewhere.
Yeah, and it's about like how people in Venice, they suffer from the same kind of problems that I'm very familiar with: high rents and people destroying the places because they come with this big cruise ship there, and the water levels are going up and down, and they destroy the infrastructure. The jobs are less of them, and the stores are closed except the ones that sell all kinds of touristy things. Yeah, I think it's very interesting to watch.
Yeah, it basically, on the example of Venice, it shows quite a lot of the problem which caused by mass tourism. It's not just one problem. There are quite a lot of them, and they're all different, and they're pretty much all of them are showcased in this one movie on just one example of one city. So that's it. Like, if anybody wants to go deeper into this topic, that's the documentary.
Yeah, no, I think the book was very interesting because I didn't know about some types of tourism, or didn't think about them as being type of tourism, you know. So I think it's a very interesting book, and I'm really happy that we have new people who write books for Trom. So that's even more interesting than all of this. It is, because I don't want to rely only on me to write books. I think you realized that it's a different kind of thing when you research for a topic, because you put your ideas there and you go through them and you find more and you research, and you learn a lot more. You know more about tourism now than you
Yeah,
knew before.
exactly. That's the cool thing about writing. When you write, you do research a lot. When you write, you learn about a lot, and that's that's actually interesting.
Yeah, and I
You really
recommend people
learn a lot.
to also go to Sasha's website, Big World, Small Sasha, and because she's in a way, like I explained to her, I think she's hacking this society. She knows how to travel in a very cheap way, and has to have a different kind of lifestyle because of it. So I think you can learn a lot from her travels. So I suggest you go to her website, and we can
Yeah, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
just like
yeah
taking advantage of the system. And I mean, I'll just explain real quick. Like
Yep.
the main thing is basically not having a job as often as possible, as much as possible. Like I will just work when I really have to, when I have no money, and I'll work my ass off for a few months, and I will just concentrate on earning money, and then I will take that money and I can live for like I've lived for almost 2 years now without having like a job.
a stable
You know,
job.
I work. Yeah, I work a little bit as a hiking guide, but I don't do it for money, and I get like $20 a day. So it's not. I don't really consider that a job. It's just for fun. But yeah, basically, don't. Most people mix their lifestyle with their way of earning money. Usually, people base their entire life around earning money. For me, I never saw the point to that, and I never saw the point of actually like trying to make any kind of career for money. So I started traveling when I was 18, and all I wanted to do was just snowboard and have fun, and that's what I did for like 10 years. And I just figured out how to make money along the way, you know. But yeah, I mean, you can read more about it on my site. But
Yeah, and
basically
she has some really great photos. And not only that, but she's also, for those who don't know about her, she also talks about a lot about TROM and TROM-like subjects, you know, in her blog posts. And I really like how she combines the two, because it's not only about traveling and how to do it cheaply, but it's about values and how your values change when you meet new people and you meet new cultures, and maybe it equips you with a way to better present such new ideas like TROM, for example, to new people. Because she also made at one point some TROM discussions on YouTube, where she invited people who knew nothing about TROM and discussed about subjects from the TROM documentary. So she's very helpful even for TROM, you know. It's not only about traveling and tips, and I think that's great. You do a great job.
And I created an English club where we watched the TROM documentary. So people showed up just to practice English, because I live in Russia, and right now, and yeah, and then I forced everybody into watching it, and they all loved it. We had some really great discussions. So yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to do them now, but another time I think I'll try again.
Yeah, great stuff.
But yeah, I try to like, because whenever I write, I kind of, you know, you guys probably know I end up going on a rant, and then I kind of come, like you're saying, you learn a lot from your writing. So even for me, I'm not really researching, I'm just telling my stories. But as I'm telling my stories, I'm realizing stuff about my own values, about what I'm doing, about all sorts of stuff about the world, and I can connect like almost anything to TROM. You know, so I try to throw in as many connections as possible. You know, most of my blogs, except the recent ones where I'm just telling the Mongolian story, most of my blogs have some link to TROM documentary or some book or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
But
Okay, cool. Yeah, I also enjoy reading Sasha's blog. Really.
Yeah, I think it's for anyone is really interesting, and she's going to write a book, right?
yes.
She has to write a book sometimes about her travels. Okay, so
let's go
like
for the comment section. Do you want to read, or should I read?
yeah, but we had like 3 news or something like that. We had to talk a little bit about that.
Let's go.
We want to in every live stream to bring forth some very interesting news from Trom News. You can see it on the screen, the URL. It's a curated news system. So we have 3 news that I think are interesting to talk about, and let me start. I found a news that's very telling of our society today is the stem cell scam that is happening in the world. Is from Science-Based Medicine. It showcases how, you know, stem cells are these great interesting cells that can transform in any kind of cell in your body, because, you know, you have all kinds of different cells, and if you have stem cells you can grow it into a muscle cell or a skin cell. And they took this idea of stem cells, and now to make a profit in our trade society, because that's the point of this article, or the point that I want to make through it. They offer all kinds of treatments with stem cells, and you can go. It's even a tourism in that is related to a book in Canada. When you go to Canada, and because they don't have to, they are not that harmful to basically inject stem cells into these therapies. They can take advantage of that, and they can make lots of money, and people are getting fooled by this. And I was thinking that back in the days, I don't know if anyone knows this, but they had the same things with radioactivity. When they discovered that some elements are radioactive, and they discovered that they can kill some tumors on people's faces, they thought that this is a great treatment for everything. And in our trade society, this is a reason for business. And in the US, in the America, it was like huge posters everywhere, like we can treat everything, every kind of disease with radiation. And they harm people, and they did a lot of bad. So I think it's an interesting article, and I'm going to put the link in the description. And one that is really in the same kind of category about health news, because health news, it's a lot of crap today. Everything is it's breakthrough, and everything people are taking advantage of any kind of small clinical trial and stuff like that. There are very few sources where you can get really good news information about health, and one of them is this one, Health News Review. And unfortunately they don't have money anymore, so they are not going to continue to do their work, because this is how our world works. If you don't sell something that's shocking, then that's it, you are out of the business, and they cannot do this. But they offered their readers 5 new other sources where you can get great health news review, and I wanted to mention that I added those sources to our Trom News and Trom videos, and they are really great sources of health news. And you may think, what this has to do with Trom? But I learned so much from health news reviews and health news science-based journalism, like how science is really made. It is never like coffee is bad for you or is good for you, this treatment is good or bad. No, everything is way more complicated, and it changes the way that you think scientifically. So these are the ones that I wanted to talk about.
Cool. Yeah, the one I found really interesting from Trom News is development of 3D printed skin, and also the bone and body parts. So yeah, the scientists working on this 3D printing of, you know, and yeah, they concentrate for now for the astronauts, so that when something happens in you know, while they're on mission somewhere in deep space, so they have no options to go to or to see the doctor, so they can print the skin basically like a plaster. You put the plaster and it becomes your skin. Well, it's just fascinating.
In the beginning, it's in the beginning, the development and stuff like that. But it's it's still very promising, because it comes from and this is the thing with Trom curated news, because you may see such news on Facebook or whatever from unreliable sources, but in Trom News, any such news, it's quite a real news. You know, it's not like an exaggeration, and this comes from the European Space Agency. And yeah, I think it can lead to a lot of development. Like today we may not see much, but in 10 years, who knows?
Yeah, but just the idea. For example, I never would imagine something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I've heard about 3D printing food, and okay, maybe you get used to this idea, but then 3D printing skin or bones or cells.
Your own skin and bones. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
You had another one too, didn't you? Or is that it?
Like, not me.
Yeah, I think it was about like a 3D printed smart pill or something like that.
Oh, but yeah.
It's in the same kind of category, 3D printed medical devices. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So...
And I think I gave like 2 for Sasha.
Yeah, and then I was going to talk about a couple of articles on climate change. So there was one, let me just send a couple notes, about the 2018 Arctic report card. So basically, I mean, the upper pole is warming faster than any region on Earth, and it outlines 4 things that we should know about that. So one is red tide, which is that there are microscopic creatures thriving in the waters now that the water is getting warmer. This, of course, can have a problem on the ecosystem, bringing toxins into other plankton, fish, shellfish, birds, humans. And when you poison the bottom of the food chain, that's never a good thing. Then there's a mounting amount of microplastics in the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Basin contains more microplastics than all ocean basins in the world. Another thing is that despite since the ice is melting, there's more land, and some animals are thriving in these conditions because now they have more territory. But caribou and wild reindeer are actually dying, and their populations have decreased by like 50% in the last 2 decades. And the reason for that, they think, is because with longer warmer, well, first of all, they're experiencing more droughts, and second of all, when the weather is warmer, you can have more parasites, more bacteria, a lot of infections, things like that, affecting reindeer and caribou.
But I don't, Sasha, I don't think this is a bad thing, because look at the photo. You can like tourism can flourish here in our society.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of reindeer tours.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the mentality in our society.
Do like tours to like see the Arctic melting?
Yeah, they are doing this actually. They do this.
We discussed this topic last.
Which is so fucked up.
Yeah. And then it was also talking about the air temperature is warming at twice the rate as anywhere else in the Arctic. And that's that has an effect on winter storms, for example, in the northern hemisphere. And then the second article was basically about how disasters are worsened by climate change. And I think it's an interesting topic to bring into this conversation about overtourism, because now there's like entire regions and even entire countries that are like dependent on tourism. And a lot of this tourism, it needs its ecosystem. So for example, diving, or any place where there's a coral reef, like climate change is going to bleach the reef, and then you'll have no more reef, and then tourism is going to be the first industry to collapse
near the coastline, where they have to reconstruct the beach. They have to bring in sand from all kinds of places to reconstruct, because the water levels are rising.
And it makes people so vulnerable too, when their lifestyle is dependent on tourism in these kind of places, and and tourism is dependent on having a stable ecosystem.
So I think it's I was saying like last time that such news about climate change is becoming so abundant nowadays that you don't even know if if it impacts people or not, because you read almost daily like we are fucked, but not much is getting done. Yeah, it's the society that we live in. Okay, we can.
And I think
yes.
I just wanted to mention one more thing about this this topic, because kind of the mixture of both topics, because a lot of people are kind of afraid of my lifestyle. Of I have a lot of people coming up to me being like, "Oh, I wish I could live like you," but and then they give me a million excuses. But a lot of people are kind of afraid because they see it as instability. Because I rarely have a job, so I don't have like a stable amount of money coming in. So people are afraid of that. But for me, what scares me more is, a lifestyle that my mother has, for example, who she lives in the suburbs of New York City, and they had an electrical outage for just a few days, and it was like a huge disaster. And if you have some massive storm, which is going to happen inevitably, then this whole region is just going to be screwed. Now, that's real vulnerability, To me, if I happen to be there, I could just leave, If my backpack gets wet, or even if I lose it, it's not a big deal. But for people, it's like their entire house gets destroyed, and they've just spent their entire life, working to make this house, their nest.
Plus, I think such people consume more than you consume, and people might think that you may consume more, your footprint in terms of what you consume, because you live with like a minimal lifestyle. Whilst most people, especially in America, they don't travel, and they may think if you travel, Sasha, maybe you have a much bigger footprint. But when those people stay in those big houses and they have 4 or 5 cars and they use a lot of electricity, they consume a lot more. So it's not.
Yeah, I mean, apart from airplane pollution, which even I try not to use airplanes that much anyway. Like I usually don't travel somewhere far away. I usually just live somewhere and then get somewhere else and then live there and then see what's in that area. But apart from airplane pollution, like everything else, I don't really buy anything. Whenever I live anywhere, I go to the local market and I get local vegetables and I try to eat local as much as possible, and I don't really buy anything else because I don't have enough money to buy stuff. Plus I'm gonna pick up and leave, and I'm gonna put everything back into my backpack, and it needs to fit in there. So I don't need like an outfit for every occasion and some high heels and different type of shoes and electronics, a TV or whatever. I don't need any of that,
You spend your Christmas
so I think my
in a
footprint
tent, maybe.
is less, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, we can go to the live chat to see if there are some comments there. If Dima, if you have read anything that you want to address, if you think something.
Yeah, I've read, but I have to read it again. Like the Arton asking about Twitch. Have you thought about streaming on Twitch? On YouTube?
It would be great to stream on multiple sources, but we can't. We can do this through a third-party kind of company, but we don't have that much control, so we'll see.
The recommend about Instagram that people just go to place to have perfect pictures and
yeah, you have sent me some questions. Okay,
it's an interesting point that Jan made about expectations. Because another thing with like mass tourism is when you pay for a tour, you're expecting something, and usually with expectations comes disappointment.
Yes.
But when you actually like travel long term, I'm never expecting anything. Like if something comes my way, okay, that's great, and there's usually almost always something that comes anyway. And I think life's much better when you're just not expecting anything. And
yeah, exactly. Like yeah, that's a very important point, because they have, as I said, they look at these pretty photos and they think that everything is such a party, or everything is so amazing, but when they reach the destinations, it's not really like that.
Yeah, Or like you know, again with the Mongolia example, if you paid for a tour to go into like sleep in some ger in a yurt, you know, and get fed some food and whatever, experience some cultural thing, and it doesn't go as you expect, you can be, people can be assholes to the local people, you know, because, oh, my food sucks, you know, or it's cold, or this cheese is salty, you know. But if you're invited to someone's house and they do this stuff for you anyway, you're never gonna, you know, expect anything from them, and whatever you get from them is just extra, and having that extra is always just really positive.
Yeah, because you know it's real relationships. You know, it's communication and connection. It's not a service. When you pay, you basically trade, and you expect something from them, and they should provide you with something. But when it's connection, it's just, you know, normal human, you know, behavior, and that's what's amazing when you meet other people, and you may not speak with them, you know, the same language, but you still can share something, and you still get something from that experience.
Yeah, it's
you
like
connect
Something you never will be able to buy because it's just not for sale.
when you go into a store and the guy who sells there is not your friend, you know, it's the same thing that when you go and you travel, that guy who comes and carries your luggage or gives you food is not your friend. It's basically it's his job or her job. So it's a completely different story. Someone asked if we should put these videos on TROM site. I'm going to think about this, but for me right now such streams are more like an extra thing for TROM. Like we do the stuff, the books and stuff like that, we do them on TROM site, and then we use YouTube like a megaphone to talk about such stuff. But I'll see, maybe you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. What can you say about the people who visited most of the countries in the world during their lifetime? Well, I think Sasha is one of them. But I don't think it's about countries, I think it's about places, if I'm not wrong. Because countries are just imaginary boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. And I never think that it's like some people are like, oh yeah, I've been to like 50 countries, like okay, well, what did you get out of it? Like for me, it's never about the number or, you know, how many places did I go to. I'd rather spend a much longer time and get to know a place, you know, really understand it, understand the people, understand the perspective that people live with. And for that, you need time. You can't just be like, check. Okay, I've done that. I hear Australians say that all the time. I've done Europe.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you mean you've done it? Like.
Yeah, that's the competition, you know, mentality.
Yeah,
the competition and also our values, just to show off and, you know, to make you somehow inferior than the other, or for any others reasons, but it's not about traveling or exploring places.
And someone asks, Sasha, did societal pressure not affect you or your family? I'm not sure what exactly saying, but
societal pressure. Yeah, I was forced to go to university. That was a huge, like when I was younger. I left my house as soon as I finished high school. I just drove to Canada and lived in Whistler. And there I did what I wanted to do, which was just snowboard at the time. And I met people from all over the world. And from them, I learned that, like, hey, actually, you know, you can travel all over the world. You can do whatever you want, you know. And I never really cared about what other people told me I was supposed to do. You know, get a job, you know, a husband and children and whatever. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. But I was forced to go to university. I went to like 3 different universities, quit like four times, and eventually I finished. In the end, that was a good thing because I studied international and global studies. So I studied global problems, global economy, global politics, environmental problems, what people are trying to do with current solutions. And that's why when I ran into the Venus Project, I was like, well, yeah, clearly the whole system is the problem. I mean, I knew that before, just from my freaking university degree. And then, so it was, in a way that I was lucky that I randomly got into that degree, because I learned a lot about the world, and I learned it from an institutional perspective. But basically, it just gave me that more backing that I was doing the right thing in life, that there was no point of like wasting my whole life just trying to create some kind of career for money. I just don't see a point to that. Yeah, and of course my parents didn't take it well. Like I was always fighting with them, like about my lifestyle. For the first 5 years, nobody supported me at all, and then my dad was the first person to say that I was doing the right thing in life when I was like 22. It took a while, and just like last year, most of my family is finally accepting me. So it's a long battle, yeah. But you know, when you really are passionate about what you're doing, then don't let anything stop you. You know, especially culture and society.
Yeah, I think all of us who are especially closer to Trom are a bit weird because you cannot be that much normal and be interested in such things, I suppose.
Yeah.
And someone
exactly.
is asking about virtual tourism, which I think is an interesting idea. You didn't mention in the book, but it's instead of visiting perhaps like a museum, you can do that in 3D, or yeah, I think it's a solution for avoiding.
Yeah, I'm aware about this topic. Yeah, I haven't included in the book. I think, yeah, of course, it's work. I think it would be very beneficial for those who cannot, just like don't have the opportunity or ability to go someplace. Let's say, like, I don't know, maybe disabled. Some people disabled who never can experience or to see something, to have this in 3D. Yeah, definitely, yes. Like personally, for me, I still enjoy life offline, and I try to do as much as I could offline. But yeah, for some person, it might be good alternative.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of a different. Well, it depends on where you're going, but it would be a bit different. Like, I mean, if you're hiking to the top of a mountain and you're standing on top of a mountain, you can never, replace that with a 3D model. The feeling that you get from
yeah, exactly.
It can act.
That might be the solution for those who can't, like, physically maybe to climb this mountain and at least to experience in such way. So yeah, it's definitely
with virtual reality and stuff like that, it can also diffuse a little bit the mass tourism. If it can be like, so
I don't know. I think it could make it even worse though, because look at this awesome virtual reality thing. Oh, I gotta go there and take selfies of me there.
Yeah,
and then you have to then you have to pay. If it's really popular place, you have to pay to access virtual place.
Well, in our society, I was thinking more like a different kind of society, not because in today's society you will have to pay to visit it in a virtual reality, or you will see some ads around Everest.
Yeah. Birds flying.
But it's
Birds
Twitter.
flying with a Coca-Cola sign. Twitter.
See, what do you think about space tourism? It is going to ruin everything if we do it in the same way. It's going to be like complete craze. Like it's crazy. They wanted to do like a Big Brother show on Mars, and they are serious about this. Which is a bit...
I mean, it's gonna happen. There's it's gonna happen. Like the cosmical tourism and airspace tourism. It's like
that's so nuts. Like, we cannot fix these massive problems we have on Earth, and we're sending people to space on freaking tours.
Yeah, if you go into space with this kind of mentality that you have to trade and you have to do something in order to go to Mars, to whatever, it's going to be the same shit on Mars that is on Earth. Maybe Elon Musk is going to be the next multi-billionaire in our, like, not only on Earth but also on Mars. Which is crazy.
Theo mentioned that a bit in The Origin of Most Problems, so I recommend reading that book.
Yeah, because that's what they want to do, like trap asteroids. They look at asteroids today, which are these big rocks in the sky that have so many resources in terms of money, and they look at this asteroid not like an asteroid but like a $5 billion thing, which is crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So I think We are done. It's like exactly 1.5 hours, like we wanted.
There's one more questions from
Yep.
Alex, so I will read it. Okay, question on trade. People exchange trade in some way through social interactions. If I do something nice to someone, they're likely to do something nice for me, and vice versa. In what sense it's different from the classical trade?
Well, this can be a long discussion, but I had this discussion on many times. It's when we refer to trade, you are talking about most obvious trades, like you need food, and someone says you won't get food unless you give something back. When you help someone and then they help you back because they think, yeah, you helped them, this is just simply like not even sharing. It's just like friendship. Because I was joking with someone because someone insisted on that, and I said, well, you can see trade when you go to pee, because you pee and you get something in return. It's satisfying, right? You shouldn't go into such minute details, because everything, if you go into minute details, nothing makes sense anymore. Not even the open source idea or any other ideas. So we refer to the macro scale here.
You can go back to the tourism example with that. So like I mentioned, the family in Mongolia, if you pay for a tour where they take you to a family, that's a trade. And the relationship there is still, it's not an equal human to level. You're trading your money to get this tour. You're expecting things, you don't have this human relationship. Whereas if a family takes you into their home, like I explained in my blog, it's not a trade, because even though they were really nice and we gave them some like chocolate and jam, whatever we had, I would never call that a trade, because they weren't expecting anything from us. Exactly. They were just kind and genuine and just giving, and if they're not expecting anything from us, then it's not a trade. If they were expecting money for us, then it would be a trade.
Or if they make it clear and ask you, then they say, because if you come to my place and I say, okay, come to my place and stuff like that, but I expect from you something, it's my problem if what I expect. No trade happened. But if I say you come to my place and you have to give me money, that's a trade directly, because I wouldn't accept that unless I get something.
Yeah. And the relationship is immediately different. As soon as you pay for the service or you're given a free whatever, it's immediately different.
And it's a different kind of communication also. Like I'll give you example in connection. So let's say I was driving home from Germany to Latvia, and then I just stopped to fill a gas in a gas station, and then the guy came and asked if I could drive her wife home, because his car was broken, but his wife, she's got an operation and she couldn't walk and stand on a cold, so she had like a back operation somewhere in Poland, so I have to drive her like 300 or 400 kilometers, and I said, yeah, of course. So I put her on the back of my car and drove her till the home, and I helped her to go to her flat and bring her stuff up and everything. And then she was, just to say thank you, she was, kind of giving me money, and it was like 12 euros or something. She was like, I can see, she's not rich and so on, but even if she would, it doesn't change. And I said, I'm not giving you a service, I'm helping you. And that's what is all about. If I would accept those money, that would ruin all my experience of helping people, and also there, she just, yeah, okay, this was a guy, I paid him, and he made a service. So in some way, I didn't trade with her, and I didn't want to. I like completely reject to take, because I said, if I will take money, that means that I'm not helping you. I just made you a service, and people, supposed to help each other. So it's totally different experience, and yeah, answering this question, there's no different,
Yeah, I know that some people ask about trade, like what is a trade and what is not. And just take the obvious cases, like in case of Dima, if he were to say, I will bring her or get her home, but I need 50 euros for that, that's a trade, because he wouldn't do that unless he gets something back from them. If Dima got something back in terms of, yeah, he felt really good helping this woman, it's like his business. I mean, it's not important for that kind of situation, because it wasn't any kind of trade. I mean, it's ridiculous to think like that.
Exactly.
Like, I'm helping you and I feel great. It's a trade because I helped you for me to feel great. It's my business. It's my, like, it's not important. I helped you for free. That's important.
Yeah, and you can feel great. You can feel like shit. It doesn't matter because you're not doing it for how you feel.
You don't ask something in order to do it. If you
exactly. Don't ask anything in return. That's the point.
Yeah, I repaired so many computers and I asked nothing, but I felt really great about it. But it's not like, so what? Those people didn't even know what I was thinking about them. I just helped them for free.
Again, you know, it's not your point to, okay, I'm gonna look somebody, you know, who has a broken computer.
Exactly.
I want to feel great. I need to feel great today, really. So he's got a broken computer. You know? And that's the different mentality, you know.
Yeah. If you want, we can close the stream. If you want to, there is no other question, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we can.
And next time, I think we can do, if Dima can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it. For Sasha, she's like, it's 3-4 a.m. right now, so she had to wake up to join us, which is really great. Thank you. And next time, I was thinking maybe we can talk about who owns the world. We have a big search engine to showcase who owns everything in this world, from cars to foods to everything. I want to showcase that, and maybe we can talk about that. I will let you know.
Cool topic.
Okay, so thank you for writing some questions for us. I think it's great to have other people involved, and yeah, it's fun talk, you know. I enjoy it. Okay, I will stop the stream. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.